Hello, everyone. I'm Cecilia. I'm very happy to be here. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'm really excited to be part of BBELT and to talk about a topic that I care deeply about, which is learner autonomy. Our plenary session today is called, as you can see on the screen, helping learners take control of their own language journey. And this is exactly what we are going to explore together. Okay, so we're going to unpack what learner autonomy actually means in practice, why it matters more than ever, and most importantly, what we as teachers can do to support our learners regardless of our context. Okay, so yeah, so let's get started. And I want to start with this quote by Sarah Mercer, which I absolutely love. Autonomy is about choice and responsibility, not isolation, because there is a misconception around learner autonomy. It's not about letting our learners work in isolation and working on their own. It's not about that, and I'm going to talk about this. So I think this quote reminds us what autonomy isn't. Okay, it isn't about pushing learners to work alone or throwing them in the deep end. It's instead it's about equipping our learners to make informed decisions and to take responsibility for their own language journey. So with our guidance. And so in other words, learner autonomy is not about removing the teacher, right? And leave the learner by themselves. It's about really repositioning the teacher. And this is something we're going to revisit throughout this talk. Okay, so now that we've set the tone, I want to dig into why. Why does learner autonomy matter in the first place? Why is it important? So, excuse me. Yeah, so why is this important? Well, I think learners who take ownership of their process, they tend to be more engaged, more motivated, and more successful in the long run, right? And this is great for their own language journey. So when they feel that they own their learning, they become more invested in it. And yeah, so let's be honest, our classrooms are diverse, right? We have students from different backgrounds, different ages, different needs and motivations, goals, experiences. So it's really important to encourage autonomy that helps learners meet where they are, rather than us expecting everyone to follow the same path. Okay, but before we can support autonomy, we need to understand what it really looks like. So we're going to talk about that. Okay, so what does learner autonomy really mean? As I've mentioned before, autonomy is not about learning alone. It's not about letting our students study in a vacuum, right? So instead, it's about having this, giving them the sense of control, being able to make decisions, reflect on their learning, and use strategies that work for them. So it's not just about doing learning tasks, okay? But it's about understanding how and why we do them. So they do them. And I think that leads us to three essential elements that really support learner autonomy in practical terms. So let's have a look at those elements. So the first one is motivation, metacognitive awareness, and goal setting. I will talk about them specifically, so you can have a look. Yeah, so sorry, just going back. So yeah, I think it's very, very important to break it down, right? So first we've got motivation, which is the drive to engage and take initiative, for learners to take initiative. And then there's the metacognitive awareness, which is really knowing how you learn best, getting our students to understand how they learn best, right? And finally, there is goal setting, which gives learners a roadmap. And with these three elements, when they are present, learners become more likely to take charge, to stay motivated, and to really move forward, even outside the classroom, which is something great when that happens, right? When learning happens also outside the classroom. So yeah, now of course, none of this means that we teachers become redundant. It's quite the opposite. We have a huge job to really support our learners. And so let's have a look at how our role evolves with learner autonomy. Okay. So yeah, so you can breathe in. It's not about removing the teacher. Our role is still very, very important. But I think it's important to understand that our role shifts, right? And there are different stages how we can support our learners become more autonomous. So first, we are instructors. So we guide and we model. Then we become facilitators, right? To provide like a framework, structure, but also giving space for learners to make choices, to make mistakes. And finally, I think we need to step into the role of a coach, which helps the learners support reflection and also encourage them to take control of their own learning. So I think that's the magic of autonomy. It grows with our support. So you can see here how much support we can give them, right? But there are misconceptions, and I want to have a look at those misconceptions and how, and I'm going to call them myths. Okay. So you can see here two images. The first one, a learner studying by himself, a bit introverted, and then you have a group of learners. So which learners are autonomous? Is it the first one, the first image, the first person? Not necessarily. Okay. So so yeah, so here's the thing. I think many people still think that being autonomous means learning completely alone, and this is very, very far from the truth. In reality, it's about informed decision making within a supportive structure. So, for example, let's give an example. Think of video games, right? You have the freedom, yes, but you also have the levels, right? You have feedback and guidance. So I think the same principles applies to our classroom. So how can we provide scaffolding, support, without really taking over? Yeah. So I think to understand why this balance is so effective and should be so effective, let's take a look at the science behind autonomy. Okay, so this is the myth. Yeah, so let's take a look at the science behind learner autonomy. And I want to share this quote here. The Self-Determination Theory by Darcy and Ryan. So there is research, especially by Darcy and Ryan, which is the self-determination theory, that tells us that 3 psychological needs support motivation. And you can see the 3 needs there. First, it's competence, autonomy, and relatedness. So what are they? Yeah. So in other words, students need to feel capable, right? And in control. Capable, the first one, competence. And autonomy means they have to feel in control of their own learning journey. And they also need to feel connected to the learning that that's happening. They also need to feel that the learning is relevant to their lives, to their context. So when these needs are met, engagement goes up, and learning become more meaningful. So autonomy isn't just a nice idea. It's really rooted in solid psychology. Yeah, but of course, learners are not. They will not automatically take charge. Okay, so what makes the difference? We're going to look at what happens when learners do take charge, and why do some learners take charge of their own learning and others don't. Okay, so excuse me. I think this is a very important question. So why do some learners take charge? So some learners, they seem just naturally more independent, right? While others really struggle. So often it comes down to previous learning experiences, their belief in themselves, and also whether the classroom there's a classroom culture that supports risk taking. I'm going to talk about that in this talk. So when learners feel safe to make mistakes and to explore, they are more likely to step up. So this is about their self-efficacy. So what can we do when learners resist autonomy? So the other, the opposing side, what can we do with those learners? Okay, so yeah, my question is, how can we overcome learner with resistance? And I think it's important to highlight that resistance isn't failure. Okay, it's definitely not a failure. It's more like feedback. It's how learners react. Okay, so if learners fear making mistakes, we can normalize mistakes. We should normalize mistakes. For example, if learners lack confidence, we can start small and celebrate every success, even small wins that happen in the classroom. And I think if we don't know where to start, if they don't know where to start, we can provide clear frameworks. We can provide some kind of guidance and structure for them to get started, or even models. Okay, templates. That's what I mean. So yeah, think of this as lowering the barriers to entry, right? Removing all the obstacles for learners. So that we can remove that friction, so learners can get moving. They can pass that obstacle. And yeah, so speaking of movement, now let's talk about autonomy as a journey, not as a jump. Okay, so I think I like this image of someone climbing a staircase, and I think that's a nice metaphor for autonomy. So autonomy doesn't happen overnight. It's not something that they sleep and on the other day, oh, I'm independent, I'm autonomous. It doesn't happen like that, right? So I want you to think of autonomy as a climb, little by little, step by step. Okay, so some learners are at the bottom of the stairs and they need lots of guidance, lots of support. Other learners are midway. Okay, so they are making decisions, but they still need support. And a few learners may be at the top of the stairs, right? So they can navigate learning on their own. They're more independent. So what is our job? Our job as teachers is to be the steady presence, okay? No matter where they are, in which stage, if they are at the bottom, midway, or at the top. So it's important to be there for them, right? So let's map out those different stages, okay, more clearly. So as I mentioned before, learner autonomy develops in stages, not overnight. Yeah. So yeah, so let's have a look at this step by step, different stages. So from teacher directed learning here, the first stage, so where learners follow instructions, to guided and collaborative stages. For example, the second stage, guided learning, and then they become a bit more collaborative by sharing responsibility with their peers. So until they are fully independent, okay? I think it's really important to meet learners at their current stage, okay? Without rushing them to the next one. It's really respect where they are at the moment. This is fundamental. And I think that brings us to a crucial habit that supports progress across all stages. And this is reflection, okay? So this is reflection. I could not talk about learner autonomy without talking about reflection. So why is reflection key to autonomy? And I like quotes, and this is a nice quote by John Dewey, a Node quote, but I think it's so updated. Without reflection, learning is just experience. With reflection, it becomes growth, right? So I think that's a famous quote by John Dewey, and I think this is really true. And how can we help students grow, right, with reflection? There are some tools that can really support learners. For example, tools like learning journals, learning diaries. Some people call them diaries, or peer interviews, exit tickets, or even, simple traffic light check-ins, for especially young learners, that help them think, pause, and check the next steps. So these are just a few tools, right? Just a few tools. And I think this reflective habit goes hand in hand with motivation, yeah, which is something we're going to look at next. Right. So yeah, motivation fuels autonomy, but how can we nurture it? So everybody talks about motivation. So how can we really nurture motivation in our learners? And which one lasts longer, intrinsic or extrinsic motivation? So intrinsic motivation is the motivation from within that really is personalized to each learner. And extrinsic motivation is from external sources. Okay, so this, just to make the difference here. Intrinsic motivation is the one that stays, that lasts longer. It stays long term because it's personally more meaningful for learners, okay? And it's stronger and more sustainable than extrinsic rewards, right? So how can we foster this intrinsic motivation in our learners? By making learning relevant, by making learning contextualized to our learners' background, needs. Okay, you can also let students set challenges as well, give timely but encouraging feedback. So I think these three steps, these simple steps, sorry, can really boost our learners' intrinsic motivation. Okay, but motivation alone doesn't lead to autonomy. Okay, because they can stay motivated for some time. How about it's also important for them to understand how they learn. Okay, how they learn. So this is where metacognition comes in. So this is our next element. So what is metacognition? Metacognition is basically, in simple terms, thinking about thinking, right? Thinking about thinking. And it really helps, metacognition helps learners become more self-aware and more strategic about their own learning journey. So it's also about noticing what works, yeah, to help our learners notice what works, what doesn't work, and be able to make those adjustments. So we can encourage metacognition with, again, with some tools like, what, as I've mentioned before, learner diaries, or even self-reflection prompts, some questions that we can ask them by the end of the lesson or during a lesson to really help them evaluate and become more self-aware. So, and another very nice strategy that I personally like a lot is think aloud strategies. So it's really asking learners to think aloud, yeah, as they go through a task that can build awareness. Instead of them thinking silently, ask them to really tell you what they're thinking as they're doing a task, for example. This can be so powerful. And I don't feel that teachers really really use that strategy a lot. It would be very effective. So so yeah, but again, awareness alone isn't enough. Okay, metacognition alone isn't enough. We need to help students put this awareness into action. So how can we do that? This is our next topic. So how can we help students how can we help students take action into their autonomy? Okay, so so this is just a very simple roadmap with 5 steps. So first, learners need to recognize their habits. They need to understand and recognize, and then they identify their strengths and their weaknesses, and try out strategies to evaluate them, and then eventually they become more independent. Okay, so this is a process. It's not it's not a one-off activity. Okay, it takes time. We need to be patient, and like any skill, it improves with practice and feedback. All right, so yeah, so let's talk about goal setting. Okay, it's something that gives learners direction, the goal setting. Yeah, I believe most of you might have heard of SMART goals, the acronym SMART, not the word smart, right? SMART. And we're going to talk about that in a moment. But yeah, so I want to highlight that without clear goals, without specific goals, learners can feel lost. Okay, they can feel lost. So the SMART goals: specific, measurable, achievable. Some people call it actionable, relevant, and time bound. You might also see as timely. Okay, so these type of goals make things more manageable, more doable. Okay, so instead of vague intentions like I want to improve my English, teacher. Okay, it's very vague. What does that mean? What does that involve? Okay, so we should guide learners into something like, for example, watch one TED Talk daily and summarize it. Okay, you can even narrow it down a bit more. So that goal alone is more practical, right? It's trackable. You can track back, and it builds autonomy bit by bit. Okay, so it's much more specific. And I think, yeah, so goal setting is also connects beautifully with needs analysis, which is something we're going to talk about next. It's understanding our learners' needs and wants and their desires. Okay, and also give them a say, give them voice to tell us what they want, what they need. So so yeah, so needs analysis doesn't have to be something we do to learners. Okay, we can involve learners in this process. So yeah, so why not involve them in identifying what they want, what they need, and how they like to learn, right? Because again, not teachers, sorry, learners are different. Yeah, even within the same group, you will get different learners. So you might want to ask open questions like these ones. You might want to do short surveys. So the more learners feel that they have a voice, the more invested they will be. So yeah. Now we are going to. So in speaking of investment, now let's have a look at how small tweaks in our teaching can make a big difference. This is our next topic. Okay. So autonomy, I want to highlight this first. Autonomy doesn't require a big shift. Okay, it doesn't require something huge. So little things like offering two task options, for example, giving homework format choices, or letting students self-check before we step in. All these foster agencies, learners' agency. So, for example, I love using WhatsApp with my learners. So by using WhatsApp, I can give them different formats, different homework formats. I can ask them to record something, so that would be the voice. I can ask them to video something, that would be, voice and image, or just send a written task. So you see, I'm giving them three different options in terms of homework assignment. So it can be something very simple as that, right? And I think they might signal something. If we signal something important to them by doing that, like, I trust you. Okay, I trust you. You can choose whichever format you feel more comfortable with. That's fine. I trust you. So this is really, really powerful to our learners. And I think this message alone can transform the learner mindset, and it can make a real shift in the learner's mindset. Now, what if you're teaching in a more specific context? Okay, we're going to look at different contexts now. Now, let's look at how autonomy plays out in different settings. So we have 4 settings here for context: young learners, exam-focused courses, adult learners, and online learning. I am well aware that even with those 4 contexts, these are still a bit broad. I know that they are broad, okay? But I'm going to share some ideas, and you need to adjust to your specific context, okay? So, so yeah, so here are some practical ideas. For example, for young learners, You may, even for young learners, even for children, for 5-year-olds, 6-year-olds, okay, you might want to offer limited choices, but meaningful choices, okay? In exam classes, exam preparation classes, you might want to try different self-correction techniques with color coding, peer check. So these are different self-correction techniques, peer correction as well. With adults, you may want to encourage them to write a journal, write a journal of their own learning gains, their reflections, and for example, in online classes, you can also provide self-paced tasks, so that they can, for example, submit a task or an assignment at their own pace, without this rushing to submit by a specific deadline. So you can give them more freedom, right? So I think overall the principles, they stay the same, right? But the execution depends on your context, and of course it depends on your learners, okay? How big the group is, for example, right? So now let's look at a few more examples of tasks. Okay, so these are more examples, and what I want to highlight here is that there are some really easy ways to foster autonomy and to make it applicable to our routine. For example, offer homework options, use peer checking before correction in class, right? Give them time to check with their peers. If you're teaching online, you can use the breakout rooms. Put them in the breakout rooms, get them to have a chat and to check their tasks before you correct with the whole class. I think this gives them really a safe space, for them to ask questions, to make mistakes. And I think this is about flexibility. Okay, it's giving them flexibility and showing that we trust them. And when students feel empowered, they really rise to the occasion. So so these are just very simple tasks that you might want to try in your classrooms. Now let's have a look at the digital side of things, right? We cannot forget that. So what tech tools can support autonomy? Let's have a look at some examples here. I'm sure that there are much more options here, and these are just some examples, okay, of tools that support learner autonomy. So, and what I want to emphasize is that the right tech tools can really boost independence. So, for example, flashcards, apps like Quizlet or Anki, they are great for as a supplementary tool to your lessons. There's another one called, oh my god, I forgot the name. It's a short name. Authentic listening podcasts as well, from TED Talks, but also if they have, for example, Spotify, they can choose their own podcasts, or you might want to suggest some for them. There's BBC Learning English. It's a great podcast for learners specifically. And there are also discussion boards where learners, they discuss, they have conversations on different topics. Yeah, on different topics. So even on social media as well, you can also encourage them to write comments on social media, to respond to comments. If they follow, their favorite celebrities, why not write, something nice on an Instagram post or TikTok, and just encourage them to, to take more risks. And there are also collaborative tools like Google Docs. They support learning beyond the classroom. Yeah. So Google Docs is great for collaborative writing. So, but just remember, it's not about the tool, okay? It's not about the tool. It's about the purpose. What is the purpose of that tool? Okay. So it's important to use tech to build habits, not just fill time. Okay. It's not to fill time. It's really to help learners build that healthy habit of learning, using the tools that they have to improve their own learning. So yeah, and speaking of habits, now let's talk about the emotional side. We talked about tech, the technological side. Now let's talk about the emotional side. How can we support learners to take risks? So yeah, so I think it's really important to encourage risk taking, yeah, in learning, because growth, we know this cliche, right? Growth happens outside the comfort zone, but I think this cliche really stands true. So let's explore that. So autonomy involves risk, right? It does involve risk. So but at the same time, learners need to feel safe making mistakes. Yeah, they need to feel safe. They need to feel safe experimenting. They need to feel safe learning from feedback. So how can we help them feel safe in those risk-taking moments? I think one great way of doing that is by modeling our own mistakes, really showing that we are vulnerable. We are human beings as well as they are, and I think that can really resonate with learners, because when they see that we teachers make mistakes, they can also make mistakes, right? They can feel safe to make mistakes. Also, celebrate their mistakes. Don't belittle or damage anything that they say. So celebrate their mistakes. Value their questions. I always tell my learners there are no stupid questions. Okay, there are no stupid questions. All questions you have are valid. Maybe the question that you have, I tell my learners, is a question that your classmates are they want to ask. So please ask your questions. There are no stupid questions. Okay. You may want to use low stake activities, quizzes, something that really doesn't take too much of a risk from them, and really build a culture of peer support. This is so important. This peer collaboration, peer support, because when learners feel secure, they feel safe, they become braver. Yeah, they become braver. They take more initiative, and as a result, their autonomy flourishes. So that's what we want from them, right? So now let's have a look at something else. How do we know, okay, our efforts are working? How do we assess that? This is my last point. So we're going to talk about how we can assess the impact of learner autonomy. Okay, and we might not give a formal grade, yeah, but we can still assess, we can still evaluate by noticing the signs. Yeah, sometimes those signs are subtle, sometimes they are more visible. So, for example, are students asking more questions? Are they asking more questions to you? Are they asking more questions to their peers? Yeah. Are they tracking their progress? Yeah. Are they reflecting more? Whether they are reflecting orally with you, by speaking to you, or maybe by writing, a diary, for example. Okay. Are they more motivated? Do you perceive that from them? They are more motivated. They are more enthusiastic about learning. So, and research shows that autonomy correlates with better long-term retention. Yeah, long-term retention, and that's really what we want from them. Yeah, so learners who keep learning long after the course ends, not just in the classroom, but outside the classroom, and when the course ends, if they change teachers, if they change groups, we also want them to keep on learning, right? So, and with that, I want to finish my presentation. Thank you so much for listening. I hope this talk has left you with some practical ideas to implement in your classroom straight away, tomorrow, next week, but also a mindset, okay? A mindset shift, because autonomy isn't a destination. Yeah, it's a journey. Remember, it's a climb that we take outside alongside our learners. So if you want to connect with me, feel free to send me an email. And thank you so much, and see you soon. Bye bye.